Coming up next, it was a 1987 album track that wasn't even released as a single in America. Then years later, the song would make history several times over. First, it was remixed by an underground duo and released as a bootleg that got play all over. In fact, when this artist heard her song, she wasn't sure whether to congratulate these guys or sue them for using her song without permission. But she decided to help them promote it, and it became one of the biggest hits of her career, and actually her biggest worldwide hit. And then it was used as the track to develop the MP3, making this artist the mother of that format. And to think it came from eating breakfast at a restaurant that was later the one you'd see in Seinfeld. This iconic artist, in a great interview, tells the crazy story next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember ordering something from these ads in the back of the comic books back in the day, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now, click the big red button, and click the notification bell so you always know when our new ones drop. Also, check out our latest merch, including our Choose Music. The shirts are below. So it's time for another edition of Revelations, where featured artists go deep on their greatest songs and their greatest albums. And these are stories you truly won't find anywhere else. Kind of water cooler talk about your favorite songs. Today we have a story about a song that was just an album track that was a cappella, till an underground duo remixed it and added a beat to it, making it one of the catchiest songs of its time. Tom's Diner was written by Suzanne Vega at the actual diner.
I am sitting in the morning at the diner on the corner.
A real diner named Tom's that would later double as Monk's Cafe in the TV show Seinfeld. She'll talk about that. Suzanne Vega ruled radio in '87 with her poignant song Luca.
My name is Luca. I live on the second.
But Tom's Diner from the same album, it never got released. Then 3 years later, a group named DNA remixed it. Find out the story from Suzanne next, and how it became one of the biggest sing-alongs of its time, and how it helped invent the MP3. Coming up next on this interview. Here it is. The stories behind songs, sometimes it's just stranger than fiction, and Tom's Diner is one of those.
Yes.
And another cinematic Suzanne Vega song, a song that has really had two different, very different interpretations, the original and then the, I guess you could say, a collaboration with DNA as it became later on a collaboration.
I'm sitting in the morning at the diner on the corner.
Tell me about that. The inspiration, as I understand, it came in like clear back in 1981. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I was just about to graduate from college, and I was an English major with a theater minor, and I had taken a class called The Dramatic Monologue. And so a dear friend of mine, Brian Rose, who's a photographer, told me one day that he felt that he saw his life through a pane of glass. And he always felt slightly alienated from whatever he was involved in. And this struck me as sort of romantically alienated. So one morning I was there. I actually used to eat at Tom's all the time. And I started to imagine, what if this were a film? What if this was a film through Brian's perspective? What if this was like a French new wave moment in time? And I thought, I want to write a song that reflects that feeling. And that's what I did. So some of the events actually happened. The man in the newspaper that was true.
I open up the paper. There's a story of an actor who had died.
There was someone who had died. I didn't know who he was. I know who he is now, which is Bill Holden, the actor. William Holden. So there's even a Tom's Diner Day, because it's the day that William Holden died. So those were the real things. But the other things, like the woman pulling up her skirt, that was something I had invented.
That she's hitching up her skirt, and while she's straightening her stockings.
So I had to do whatever it took to kind of make the song flow and make it go somewhere. And I had imagined it with piano, but I didn't play piano, and I really liked the song, and so I started to just do it a cappella. And it really worked. And because it worked so well live, we decided to record it that way.
I am waiting at the counter for the man to pour the coffee.
Just to be brave and interesting. You know, it changed a lot of things for me to do it a cappella. The remix was one of those things.
And I'm turning to the horoscope and looking for the funnies.
The fact that you made it onto the menu at Tom's Restaurant, and there's so much history that a lot of people don't realize that is monks from Seinfeld. The interior, of course, is Hollywood soundstage, but
yeah,
the actual outside, every time they show that's Tom's Diner.
It's Tom's Diner. I know. And before that, it was just this little hole in the wall place, a very kind of average greasy spoon place to get some eggs and coffee.
It is always nice to see you, says the man behind the counter.
That's what I love about Tom's Diner is it's so much deeper than when it initially hits your ear. It's cool how you built it, because the ear starts to pull in what you're saying, and all of a sudden you're kind of mesmerized by what you're hearing. I mean, by the third verse, as you talk about, you just said about William Holden.
I open up the paper. There's a story of an actor who had.
You constructed Tom's Diner like the a cappella section. And the curation to open Solitude Standing, I always thought that was so cool. And then close with the instrumental version. It just brought cohesiveness to the album, the bookends. I really like that.
I had always imagined, I wanted to hear the instrumental version too. And then I thought, well, we'll include both styles. But it's also a little story. And a lot of the songs on Solitude Standing are kind of little portraits of people. Calypso, Caspar Hauser, and so I felt that was a good way to open that album. With yet another little portrait.
That is kind of the thematic element of it, of not being an exact theme running through, but the stories that pulled all together. And that kind of placement to me is like a lost art, what they used to do with the album. So I think the album is so important.
There's a woman on the outside looking inside. Does she see me? No.
DNA. Tell me about that. Tell me about
Yes.
when you first heard that, because that must have been. I mean, this is before the internet and before these kinds of things happen. Today it happens all the time. Yeah, tell me about when you first heard that and how it came together, where you decided, not to. Because at first you're probably thinking, hey, that's my song,
Well, here's how it was delivered to me. And the funny thing is, I still remember exactly where I was. I was backstage at the Arsenio Hall show, about to go on and perform something from my new album, which was called Days of Open Hand. And we were trying to promote that album as the follow-up to Solitude Standing. And it was going okay, but not like great. So my manager was there. And he said, by the way, I want you to listen to this remix of the song Tom's Diner. These boys from Bath called DNA did this remix, and A&M want to sue them for copyright infringement and for not asking for permission. And I said, well, let me listen to it and, just see what it was all about. And I actually really liked it. I thought it was really witty and funny. And I also really liked that they didn't change the lyrics. They didn't change my vocal. They didn't change anything. They kind of left off the end. But mostly all they did was put this beat to it, which kind of seemed to fit.
I am waiting at the counter for the man to pour the coffee.
I said, I think what we should do is buy it from them and release it ourselves. And it was my idea to come up with the phrase DNA featuring Suzanne Vega, because I wanted people to know that the production wasn't my idea, that they were featuring my vocal, featuring my song, but it was actually a DNA production. And I got to know them pretty well, actually. When I first met them, they came backstage to a show in England. So I actually looked, when these two guys came into the room, I looked at them and I said, okay, well, one of these guys is the manager and the other one is probably the engineer. But where's DNA? So I kept looking over their heads going like, where are the guys who did this? And they were like, we're DNA. And finally I realized, oh, these are the guys. The remix was actually done by Nick Batt. And Neil Slateford was actually more of the marketing guy.
And they were really young guys.
Yeah, they were really young. And they had this manager who was kind of like an underworld gangster from like the East End of London. And they had this cool idea. And so over the years, I've really kept in touch with Nick, who was sort of the genius guy who actually did it. And I've also kept in touch with Neil Slateford, who's just brilliant. And I asked Nick, why did you do this? And he said, we're fans. We're fans of yours. And they said the rhythm was already there in the song. And if we hadn't done it, someone else would have done it. So it was just, that's how he felt. The rhythm was already there. And it was just, he just felt that it was obvious. Yeah, so that's Nick, and that's we've had many anecdotes through the years, and I just saw him last year when he came to the show in Bath.
And it's cool that it became something where A&M is talking about litigation. You hear it and you say, no, let's do something with it, and it becomes this whole other thing. And that's why I always think the best course sometimes, don't do the lawsuit. Try to figure out a way, because there's usually some kind of thing that can work out. There's synergy there. And it came at a pivotal point in your career. It like brought Solitude Standing back into the limelight as people wanted to hear the other version. And it was such a cool song in pop culture at that moment too, because you're probably tired of hearing about this one. They call you sometimes the mother of the MP3, and you have no control over that. But a lot of people don't know that that's what they used to test. They used Tom's Diner to test. The original is what they used. They didn't use the DNA version because they wanted to make sure that something about that they didn't lose
the fidelity of the sound. So to tell you exactly what they did, they actually invited me to the Fraunhofer Institute to have lunch at the home of the MP3. I'm the mother of the MP3, and Karl-Heinz Brandenburg was like the father of the MP3. So they actually showed me what the Tom's Diner sounded like when run through the MP3 as it was when they first started doing that. And the first thing that came to my mind is, this sounds like The Exorcist. That awful devil voice that Linda Blair has, that was electronic distortion. And so that's what it sounded. Tom's Diner sounded like The Exorcist before he kept running it through and refining it until it would recreate that very simple vocal faithfully.
I'm pretending not to see them, and instead I pour the milk.
So that's how that worked.
Yeah. It's concerned about degrading the human voice. It's a really cool story. And of course that revolutionized so many things, the MP3. And it's cool that your song was the one that was used. And also a lot of people have used it to test speakers. That's been a big thing. I know there's I was reading some article that said the top 5 best songs to use when testing headphones or speakers, and Tom's Diner was on there, and I thought that was pretty cool.
It is cool. But
multi-format phenomenon, number 2 on the UK chart, just missing the top spot because Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were in that top spot. That's kind of funny. But it was number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 1 in Greece and Germany and Switzerland, basically all over Europe, and number 1 on the Euro Dance chart, which is cool.
Ooh, see, I thought it was going to be a dance hit. That's what I thought. I thought this would be a big in dance clubs. I thought it'd be like an underground thing, and but it just keeps on going.
Yeah, and it was on I think I remember it was on one of the Red Hot Dance, those compilations that came out. Anyway, but so many great covers of the song too, and samples, Tupac.
All the people in the diner Ran outside to see the big show.
And Dre.
Yeah.
Britney Spears and with Giorgio Moroder.
How cool is that?
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
And Giorgio said that it doesn't even sound like Britney because of the way he wanted her to sing it, you know? And then I don't know if you ever heard, there was a little, kind of a half cover by REM. Did you ever hear that?
Yeah, I think that's part of the, I made an album called Tom's Album, and I think they released it under some other wacky name, and I did hear it. Yeah, I included it.
And then Fall Out Boy also did it recently. You had to wear a bulletproof vest on stage. Tell me about that. Crazy.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. Some girl had developed a crush on my bass player. That's what the whole thing was about. And had gone way too deep. And and he, you know, he was getting ready to marry somebody else. So I guess this woman felt rejected, and none of us realized how far this thing had gone until the morning that we were going to play at the Glastonbury Festival. And we were staying in a hotel near the airport in London. And suddenly there had been these phone calls in the night. When I came out to check out of my hotel room, my manager was there and everyone was discussing this problem and this threat that had happened overnight. And my manager took it very seriously, and he called Scotland Yard. So they sort of followed us from London to Glastonbury and stayed with us all day. And what I hadn't realized that I was also, that they had also threatened my life. No one told me that until about an hour before I was supposed to go on. Because Scotland Yard called us all together and said, we need to talk to you. There were two people. There was a woman and there was a man. They'd found the woman, but they weren't able to find her partner. And so they gave me this, they told me that they had to give me a formal warning, and they had to give me a formal, their formal advice was that I should not do the show. And I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, this is Glastonbury, and I'm headlining. I'm the first solo female artist to headline, and it's the final act of the night, and it was packed. It was like 100, you know, I can't remember how many people, but it was, you know, tens of thousands of people all over the hillside. So I decided that I was still going to do it. I mean, so they said, okay, well, then you have to wear a bulletproof vest. And so the guys in Scotland Yard are not skinny, you know, and so I had to wear this huge vest.
Oh my gosh.
And I my arms stuck out of it like a turtle in a shell.
Oh,
and
no.
They gaffer's tape it closed to keep it closed because it was gigantic. So I had my assistant was with me at the time, and she had a big denim jacket. So it's probably the only time in my life I've ever performed in a blue denim jacket. And so there I am up on stage with my arms out like this and this bulletproof vest and this denim jacket. And I was jumping a mile high every time the lights, they trained the lights on the audience because they were still searching the audience to make sure that there were no weapons. Yeah, and finally, Anton, my keyboard player, ran over to me and said, we have to sing Luca and get off stage. And I was like, why? And he said, I'll tell you after. So I thought something had happened. I thought maybe they had found the other person. So when I came off, I was like, what happened? What's it all about? And there was a curfew. So there was a curfew because the cows in the next field didn't like the music. And if you played past a certain time, it upset them and they wouldn't produce milk. So that's how the evening ended. We had to run off stage because of the cows in the field. But fortunately, that was the end of the incident. Like, I don't think they ever found the other person, and it never happened again. The whole thing was over and done with.
Finish up my coffee, and it's time to catch the train. Da, da, da.
Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to leave us a comment about Suzanne Vega and this classic 90s hit. What are your memories of this one? You know, it's funny when I talk to people about Tom's Diner, they're like, oh, I don't know Tom's Diner. And I say, do, 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 do. And then like, oh yeah, of course, I know that song, you know. It's just funny how that works. But let's have a great discussion below about Tom's Diner. Which version do you like better? And what do you think about the singer-songwriters of that era? We had some great female singer-songwriters in the late 80s and early 90s. Let's have a great discussion below. If you like our content, we do invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you. It's all about music for us. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.